Hello neighbor, I'm Robert Burns, and in the video that we just talked to you about, that is the most recent lawsuit filed by Henderson Auctions entailing another out-of-state auctioneer, WorldNet Auctions and Charles Easler. I told you we'd go into a little bit more detail in this video about the Crown Casino auction. There's been plenty of filings made. There's filings made literally every week on that. In a nutshell, everybody is suing everybody at this point. There's third-party demands, reconventional demands. Mr. Henderson, that being Marvin Henderson, has been named personally in the lawsuit. There is a tentative trial date that is of June of 2017. But what I want to focus in on here is as a result of all of the things that took place in this auction. Many of you are aware that Nick Clark, an auctioneer in Mississippi, was dragged into the litigation over the prospective auctioning of a house called the Ivy House in Kosciuszko, Mississippi. And there was an individual desiring to file a complaint pertaining to this whole matter. And so, as I point out in the little video episode that you're about to watch with, I'll only say that a little bit disturbed by some of the practices of investigative procedures, and that being that I think it's, pretty well known now that I field a lot of complaints, and I don't mind taking on that role, but I do think that it is not a healthy environment when auctioneers are afraid to call this office for fear of reprisal. And that is the sentiment that has been relayed to me, and I think it's probably largely based upon what they saw happen to me. And in that regard, we did have one auctioneer who called me and asked for the complaint form. I've never spoken with this gentleman in my life, and I gave it to him, after which he called this office. And there was some very unflattering commentary made about me, and basically that anything that I say should not be given. It is part of the investigative process. He was submitting a complaint. He was submitting a complaint. It most certainly is, Mr. Bankston.
It's not on the agenda.
It is, Mr. Bankston. It's part of the investigative process of this board.
Please,
and I am not going to tolerate that kind of commentary being made about me, and I'm not going to tolerate you interrupting me. In regard to LALB meetings, quite frequently folk are contacting me. I'm no longer an auctioneer, but I have no qualms about filing material with this LALB and taking on the corruption that tends to take place within this LALB head on, all right? And so this particular, that's how we got the Henderson auctions, the fact that they were out there illegally loaning the license for another out-of-state auctioneer to conduct auctions. And that'll be another video pertaining to this September the 12th LALB meeting. And so this particular individual called me and indicated he wanted to file a complaint with regard to this whole Henderson matter. And so I said, hey, look, I was strongly encouraged. Now, I've never spoken with this guy in my life, all right? He is on the receiving end of the emails that go out and the videos that go out. Told me he appreciated them very much, and he said he wanted to file a complaint with the LALB. And I said, hey, I strongly encourage you to do that. I said, I have a fillable PDF form, makes it much more convenient. You go, but at any rate, I provided him with the complaint form. Well, immediately after he got off the phone with me, he called the LALB's office. And of course, Sandy Edmonds, the executive director, whom has been, as I've said, previously cited for payroll fraud by the Inspector General's office, and also it was characterized as blatant payroll fraud by the Chief of Accountability, Patrick Lowry at Civil Service. He says, hey, look, I'd like to file a complaint. And he says, I just got off the phone with Robert Burns. Well, he told me no sooner did he even get the words Robert Burns out of his mouth that Miss Edmonds launched into a tirade entailing me using words such as a nutcase, that nothing I say should be given any credibility, and that the individual being complained about here is a legendary auctioneer who's provided many jobs to Louisiana citizens. And I'm going to tell you right now, all of that activity by Miss Edmonds is completely inappropriate. All right? It is completely inappropriate. Her role in that office, which she's never made any effort to properly perform the functions in that office, but her role, when someone calls to file a complaint, her role should be a facilitator, period. All right? A facilitator. Her role is to say, I'm very sorry you feel you've been harmed by one of our Louisiana auctioneers. However, I will be happy to provide you the documentation to lodge a complaint, and I will be happy to process it for you and present it to the board. This woman is not supposed to be advocating for or against any auctioneer, but it's just another pandemic episode of how Miss Edmonds is concerned about nothing but her payroll. That's it, her check, and nothing else. And the same applies for the two attorneys, Larry Bankston and Anna Dow. In fact, I would submit to you that Larry Bankston, as a convicted felon, makes for a good little partner for Miss Edmonds in her felonious activities in her payroll fraud. It was Mr. Bankston who came in and wanted to actively pursue my auction license. At the time, I held an auction license in reporting Miss Edmonds as payroll fraud. But this is just another episode of this office not running properly. Now, I submitted all of this material to boards and commissions in a succinct email. I copied the individual who was looking to lodge the complaint, and I copied Miss Edmonds, and I did that for a reason. It's so that if Miss Edmonds was so inclined, she could hit the reply to all button and say, that's not what took place. Let me correct a few things Mr. Burns said. She didn't do that. Likewise, if the complainant did not, if I stated something incorrectly of what he said to me, which he also said I needed to file a defamation lawsuit against Miss Edmonds, and I'm going to tell you, if something like that repeats itself, take it to the bank, I'm filing, okay? Now, that's one reason you'll see in another video that the insurance premium for the LALB has skyrocketed. It's increased fourfold, and I would submit to you that it is activities like Miss Edmonds engaging in this, which leads to lawsuits, which has resulted in that increase. But basically what is going on with that particular lawsuit, the Crown Casino lawsuit, actively entailing Marvin Henderson, Jeff Henderson, Janet Cagley, obviously Blake Everett, his company BLH, and what is basically, you're welcome to go and watch, we'll give you a link to where you can watch previous videos of that. But what's going on is now everybody is suing everybody. As I mentioned, Mr. Clark's been dragged into the litigation. Marvin Henderson himself has been dragged personally into the litigation, has had to retain his own separate counsel, separate and apart from that used by JAH, because that's one of the most interesting parts of that litigation. When the proceeds for the Crown Casino had been obtained, and they also got title to the Ivy House in Kosciuszko, Mississippi, JAH made the allegation that Mr. Everett had withheld approximately $200,000 of the proceeds. And at the time they filed that lawsuit, they apparently assumed that either he got it or somebody closely related to him got it. And Mr. Everett said, no, that's not quite the case. Would you like to know who got the money? And they said, well, hell yeah, we want to know who got the money. And that's when the bombshell revelation came out that it was, and I'll just phrase it this way, hey, your daddy got that money, all right? Marvin Henderson is the one who got the $200,000 because he had said, I want you to wire me that money on the side, you see? A very interesting little development there, and apparently his own kids, Jeffrey Henderson and Janet Cagley, weren't aware of that little development at the time they stormed into court and filed a lawsuit, you see. And so now you've got Marvin Henderson, you know, they basically, JAH folks said, I'm sorry, Blake Everett's folks, attorneys said, okay, if you want to have the game this way. And see, that when they got into that mess, they said, well, you still shouldn't have wired him the money because you know our father is neither a shareholder nor an officer of JAH Enterprises. Now, never mind that, never mind that it was up on the website that he's the chief executive officer of Hender's Auctions. Never mind that upon his induction into the NAA Hall of Fame, all you hear is Marvin Henderson up there giving, you know, oh, what look, you can go and look at the video of Marvin Henderson. It's very clear that Marvin makes it clear that he is Henderson Auctions, okay? But yet, if you want to say that, hey, our daddy don't have anything to do with this company, well, it also means your daddy defrauded the company, and so he's been added as a third-party defendant. Now, as I said, it's a lot easier to fix things on the front end because I wouldn't even want to venture to guess what the legal fees, and I told you, I said that at the very beginning when we did the first video on this, that the legal fees were going to end up far exceeding the whole proceeds for this Crown Casino that was the subject of the controversy in the first place. But at any rate, as I said, the tentative trial date is in June of 2017. And certainly we will keep you up to speed. I would give you links to all the filings, but quite frankly, you'd get probably bored to tears because basically I'm summarizing it up in that, you know, every party is being sued and everybody is countering saying that, hey, I shouldn't be subject to this court's jurisdiction or either personal or subject matter. And so a judge is going to have to make a decision on that. There's also been protective orders put in place saying that, hey, we believe some of our trade secrets are entailed in discovery responses and whatnot, so we want to keep these things under protective court order and whatnot. Should this thing proceed to trial in June of 2017, you can book it. We'll be there because this is one that you ought to want a front row seat on. If I could bring cameras into the courtroom, I'd certainly do it. But you can bet we'll have the cameras outside the courtroom to give you live updates every day as that trial progresses because it promises to be a humdinger if it ends up going to trial. Thank you so much. Once again, this is Robert Burns, and we hope you find all of the videos that we provide to you, keeping you up to speed on developments within the Louisiana auction industry to be very useful and informative.